Let's just dive right in and debunk the absolute biggest misconception about the internet's most infamous neighborhood. When we hear the phrase dark web, most of us immediately picture something straight out of a gritty cyberpunk movie, right? Like a bunch of glowing green code in a dark basement somewhere.
Naturally, looking at the wild reputation it has today, you'd probably assume it was built by some global syndicate of hackers, rogue programmers, or, underground criminals. That is exactly the popular myth we're usually sold.
But here is the real twist. The foundation of the dark web was actually built by the US military, specifically the United States Navy. Yeah, you heard that right. The exact same underlying technology that currently hides global journalists, activists, and, yes, definitely some criminals, was originally engineered by the American government to hide their own spies. It's just a completely fascinating paradox. Now, before we get to the spies, let's do a super quick refresher on how the internet is structured, because it really helps us understand what the military was actually trying to achieve here. So the Google and YouTube results we browse every single day, that's just the surface web. And honestly, it's tiny. The vast majority of the internet is actually the deep web. These are just the mundane, password-protected databases you use constantly without even thinking about it. Stuff like your email inbox, your Netflix account, or your online banking. And then, way down at the bottom, we have the dark web. It's a very small third layer of the internet that you can't just stumble onto through a standard web browser. It requires highly specialized networks and very specific software. And to understand why this specific, totally hidden layer even exists in the first place, we gotta look at its military origins.
The Navy's secret weapon.
Okay, let's travel back to the 1990s, to the US Naval Research Lab. The military had a massive problem on their hands. See, their undercover operatives and spies were trying to communicate over the early internet to send vital intelligence. But those standard messages were far too easily intercepted by third parties. And here's the kicker. Even if their adversaries couldn't decrypt and actually read the message itself, they could easily trace the data to see exactly who was talking to who, meaning the operatives' identities and targets were dangerously exposed. In the world of espionage, just knowing the source and destination of a message is literally enough to get an operative killed. So to fix this, 3 brilliant researchers at the Naval Research Lab solved the issue by inventing a concept called onion routing. They designed a system to heavily encrypt messages in layers, much like an onion, and then bounce those messages randomly across a network of global computers, so no single point could ever trace the full path. Fast forward to 2002, and this project was made public under the name Tor, which stands for the Onion Router. And then, by 2004, the military did something truly shocking. They released the entire code completely for free. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would the military just give away its ultimate secret weapon to the general public?
The crowd rule explained.
Well, the military releasing this code comes down to a really crucial concept known as the crowd rule. Just think about the logic for a second. If the United States Navy was the exclusive user of this highly encrypted network, anyone spotted using it would be instantly identified as an American spy, right? True anonymity simply cannot exist in isolation. If you want to hide a spy effectively, you don't put them in an empty room. You put them in a massive crowd of ordinary people. The military desperately needed a massive crowd of civilians using this network so they could hide their own operatives among them.
Whistleblowers and journalists.
But creating that crowd led to a massive, completely unexpected consequence. The very tool designed to hide military secrets quickly became the ultimate shield for vulnerable civilians. Today, major news outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post actively use Tor-based software like SecureDrop to safely receive anonymous corruption files from corporate whistleblowers. It guarantees the sender's identity literally cannot be traced. Meanwhile, citizens living under oppressive regimes rely on it every day to bypass blocked social media and strict government censorship. The military's cloaking device essentially became a lifeline for global free speech.
And the absolute ultimate irony of this technology hit peak visibility in 2013, when Edward Snowden orchestrated the largest intelligence leak in history. How do you think he did it safely? He used Tor. That's right, Edward Snowden used this exact military-built network to expose the military's own massive surveillance secrets to journalists. The network worked flawlessly, exactly as it was designed to. It just didn't care who was actually using it.
The Silk Road Paradox. Unfortunately, the crowd doesn't discriminate. A young man named Ross Ulbricht realized he could leverage Tor's absolute anonymity to launch the Silk Road. This was the world's first massive, sophisticated, anonymous marketplace. Payments were made exclusively in Bitcoin, which was super new at the time.
It quickly became a massive hub for selling illegal drugs, forged documents, and hacking services, generating an astonishing $200 million in just 2 years. And, as you'd expect, it had devastating real-world human consequences, being linked to at least 6 teenage overdose deaths from narcotics purchased right on the platform. Neutrally tracking the aftermath here, the FBI eventually caught Ulbricht in October 2013. And get this, not in some high-tech underground bunker, but simply logged into his laptop at a public library in San Francisco. In 2015, the courts handed down a super severe sentence, double life plus 40 years. However, after serving 11 years of that sentence, Ulbricht was granted a full pardon by President Donald Trump in January 2025. So today, the creator of the dark web's most notorious marketplace actually walks free.
Myth versus reality. Now, if you spend any time online, you'll inevitably hear these wild, scary stories about hiring hitmen in so-called red rooms. But let's look at the facts. Extensive investigations reveal there are exactly 0 reported cases of a successful dark web hitman murder. 0. Infamous sites that claim to offer these services, like Bezos Mafia, were hacked and exposed as complete frauds. The operators just steal your Bitcoin, make up some excuses, and vanish. In fact, many of these fake weapon or hitman sites are actually run by undercover police agencies. The only people getting caught in these situations are the naive users trying to place illegal orders who suddenly end up with the police knocking on their front door. Just another road. So, after exploring its fascinating military origins, its criminal misuse, and its vital role in modern journalism, what is the actual reality of this network today? Well, today, the Tor network has roughly 2.5 to 3 million daily users. And research shows the vast majority of these users aren't criminals buying illegal contraband or organizing heists, not at all. They are simply regular people who want to browse the internet without being aggressively tracked by advertisers, algorithms, or monitored by their internet service providers. They just want some basic privacy.
It really comes down to this brilliant quote: "The dark web is like a road. An ambulance and a thieves' car both drive on it. You can't blame the road." The Tor network is just a simple, neutral piece of technological infrastructure. It was built by the military to hide military operations, sure, but its fundamental mechanics mean it protects whoever is driving on it, serving whatever purpose that driver intends. The military originally opened this network to create a crowd so their own operatives could hide in plain sight. But understanding that full history leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought. Should an ordinary, vulnerable person have the exact same right to anonymity on the internet as the world's most powerful governments?